Tony and I are here, and we're going to talk for a little bit about some of the work going on behind the scenes as we are preparing for the ProveIt Conference, which is next week.
Yeah, and I think what people don't realize, everybody realizes the investment, but that's while we keep our day jobs, right?
Mm-hmm.
We are still building, we are still supporting customers, we are still doing implementations, onboarding partners, and oh, by the way, we need to prepare for this monumental
It's
event.
just like a second full-time job. And requirements keep changing, day by day. Realize that, it's a big event. There's a lot of moving parts. There's a lot of customers, prospects. There's a lot of vendors. It just seems like every couple of days there's some new idea that they throw at us that they want to incorporate.
And of course, you don't inject any new ideas or solutions in that.
I got my own new ideas every day. But what was the last one? Oh, here's 24 hours notice. We need this PowerPoint slide. It is what it is. But, we're just kind of, saying that there's just a lot that goes on. We've got essentially our entire engineering department really focused on, anything that we need from like a demo perspective, making sure that they're delivering. We're, going to release our free trial as well as our on-premise versions of Fuuz at the show. So they're rapidly trying to get all of that stuff baked out.
Yeah, and it was funny. I was talking to Lance a few weeks ago on a podcast, and I asked him what he was excited about, and he had a really great response. He says, we've been churning away.
Sleep.
He said, we've been churning away at Fuuz for years, and it's happened so organically that there's never been a big champagne opening, big news release, big press release, big release in front of the crowd, and really this is a little bit of our opportunity to do that. You've been building this, so organically through so many years, and it has culminated to this, I keep teasing about the cosmically powerful platform. And literally, I think you and I are discovering each week, it's even more powerful than we think each time that we're trying to do new things. So I think for us to express and show and demonstrate that at ProveIt, what a great name and great venue for us to do this. I think this coming out party for Fuuz is going to be monumental. I think people are going to be watching and talking about this for a long time.
Yeah, you and I have crossed paths at previous, events. I've never been big in trade shows, especially not when it comes to software and technology, right? I mean, you walk by a booth, there's a couple sales guys, they don't know what they're talking about. Right, and they want you to stop and get their tchotchkes, and it's like, I really enjoyed shows like FabTech in the past, hands-on, like seeing some of the new equipment. But back when I was in operations, like those days are kind of behind me now. So there's nothing that exciting about going and seeing the newest tube bending machine, right? Although it's still cool, but. So this show is just different, and Lance and I went last year, and we just felt compelled that we felt like we should have been there last year. This year now there's 2 or 3 times the number of vendors, so I think there's several others that came away with the same kind of impressions that we did, and they're all attending this year, and so just even trying to position what problem we're going to solve, so that it stands out. Yeah. Because last year, so many of them were connecting to the data source and then visualizing the data. There was data to dashboard,
Interesting.
right? Or, data from point A to data lands in point B. Mm-hmm. All important, but all table stakes when you're talking about, operations and platforms and MES and WMS, and those things are just
checkboxes.
There's people that need those individual tools. So no offense to those tools, but for us, it's like a different level that we have to get prepared. I've done the Connect collect, analyze, visualize. We did that the first day we got access to the virtual namespace. And now it's just iterating over, okay, how do we do something that's really compelling? Warehouse management, logistics, inventory visibility, traceability from an MES perspective. I've been building this app that I've posted online. Literally, it's just been me. No one's helping me. There's a lot of doubters in the organization.
They're fired, by the way.
Yeah, they're no longer here. No, I'm just kidding. There's a lot of apprehension when I'm like, yeah, I'm building this thing with Claude. They're like, okay. So the latest thing was, the whole machine learning and building all of that out using our schema designer and our data flows, and really just working through, all of the iterations of, and no libraries, right? So a lot of other software tools, you could probably go and go out on GitHub or whatever and grab a machine learning library, pipe some data in it and get something out. But since we don't currently allow people to plug in third-party libraries due to security and everything else, this was all had to be built from the ground up, pure JavaScript.
Interesting.
Pure. It's just the purest of the pure, and it's a specific use case. But so I kind of have that focused on this Enterprise C, which is this biopharma factory. So I think it's pretty cool. But I'm at the point where we're providing predictions on where the machines are going to go, where the temperature should reach in the next 5 minutes, 10 minutes, 60 minutes. So doing all of that in Fuuz, doing it all with Claude. Some would say vibe coding, but it's also exposed just so much opportunity.
That's what you and I have talked about. It was almost stumbled upon. Number one, how I don't say easy, because there's a lot of effort, but there's a lot of knowledge. I was just talking to somebody that we might be moving from this phase of this communication gap between an architect or somebody strategic or consultant, and then passing those requirements on to a programmer, and then watching them iterate, and then feedback, and that whole loop, we can start short-circuiting it. And that's what I think will be exciting to demonstrate at ProveIt. Of now you can take an architect, a consultant, a plant manager, somebody that has an idea of what they want to do, and be able to express that through Fuuz without all of this friction of programmers.
Right. And I think there's AI is LLMs in particular are great at what they do. I think a lot of manufacturers and a lot of companies just in general have been burned in 2025, really over investing in the technology, having high hopes and expectations that it was going to deliver from a tech perspective. And I think a lot of companies didn't get the value out that they thought in terms of trying to use it to vibe code and build apps and write your own MES and all of that kind of stuff. I think those initiatives just sort of failed, miserably. But using it in the right way, and you don't use AI to build a platform. You need the platform to execute the code that AI creates for you. And so it's kind of like this perfect fit. And to your point, to enable our customers and partners, the coolest thing I found in the past 2-3 weeks is this thing called skills in Claude. So it will help you create the skills, but the skills are essentially all the interactions between me and Claude or any of our engineers, all of those iterative interactions that you have as you're trying to work through building an application where Claude's learning.
Yeah.
It turns all of that into a skill.
Makes sense.
And not only for technically building an app or writing JavaScript, but also, and I was talking to Ed about this, also for just domain expertise. If I'm a production supervisor, I may not have domain expertise of what ISA 95 is, or SESME standards, but we can build skills that do, and then provide those skills as a package to our customers, right? So now you don't have to go to college to get the degree because you've got the skill. Claude now has the skill set to do what you need to do. So we're starting to combine all these different concepts of domain expertise skills around MES, WMS, and other ML training, and the skills on building screens, flows, and data models. So you put all of that together, and we're going to release all of our skills. We'll put them on the knowledge base, so they'll be available for partners, customers. So, just go get your $20 a month Claude subscription. Don't be surprised when it goes up from $20. I was just having this conversation with Ed, and he was just elated that the costs are coming down. The costs are coming down. I go,
and our usages.
The costs are coming down. It's just like anything, right?
Yeah.
They're going to get you hooked on it, and then it's going to no longer be 20. It'll be 200. And, it's sort of like your cable bill. Right?
Yeah.
There's always that introductory offer, 6 months at $40, and then it goes up to $400. You're like, well, I can't live without this anymore. You get.
And I know I'm there. I have 4 monitors now, and I'm running constantly in multiple AIs. But your point about the skills, I think people kind of gloss over the fact that humans are so iterative. And we're so used to these back and forths that are really highly inefficient. Whether it's talking between a designer and a product manager, or a production manager talking to a vendor, all of those things are really highly inefficient.
Oh, absolutely.
So if we can remove 95% of that friction, and I need this. I talk about the serpentine effect. Right now, a lot of our customers, they get this piece of data so they can go to here, then they do this and that, and then it goes over there. Same thing with conceptually wanting something and getting to that end result of a product.
Yep.
We can go straight from a consultant perspective, somebody that's lived in the space for 45 years that knows exactly how to handle a customer that has very unique proprietary information, but there's no product on the planet that can do it, but he knows how to communicate that into Fuuz through Claude and get an end result in days, or weeks.
Could be some kind of recipe management or component analysis or what have you. That kind of reminded me of one of the other approaches that we're taking with building the skills. At least I've tried it, and I'm going to encourage the rest of the company, is you can give Claude access to all of your team's messages. So it worked fairly well. I let it scour all of my team's messages, and it came back and found messages from 2023. I mean, just going back, I said, look for any conversations between me and a solution engineer, or me and an engineer, about any Fuuz related, right? So there's always a question. There's always some kind of nuance, like, hey, I tried this and that didn't work. What's the right way? So it came back with all of these, found this conversation between you and Ryan, and this one between you and Lance. And I'm like, okay, now summarize all of that and put that into my skills. So all these things that I go into my teams and I'm like, I remember talking to so-and-so about this a year ago. Now it's just in this markdown file that's a skill, and I can give it to the rest of the team, and now they don't have to go digging. Just like you're saying, the knowledge, right? And you do something once today and you resolve it and you're happy and you move on to the next problem, and then 6 months down the road, inevitably, Murphy's Law is that same problem comes up again, but now you've forgotten how you resolved it the first time. So it's just going to be huge value, I think, to our customers. And I was talking to one of the partners the other day, Dylan at Abelara, and I mean, he's just some of the things that he's even doing with the MCP tools, and it's really exciting what we can do in such a short time frame now.
And it's, I see you thinking of, it's not, can we do it? Now we can take a look back in the past of all of the things that we hadn't been able to do that customer conversation that we couldn't do 3 years ago. That's part of that chat of asking Lance, hey, can we do this?
Yeah.
Yeah, sort of, but not really. It's, there's too much friction. So all of those products and features that had been abandoned years ago can now be put under a new lens and say, I can probably kick that out in 8 hours.
Oh, I've gotten it to the point now where just the quality of output is getting pretty high. It's not 100%. There's still some back and forth. I shared some charts that I did with Ed, and he was just thrilled because there's tool tips when you hover over things, right? The platform's always had the capability. It's always there. This isn't anything that AI brought to the platform.
Right.
It's just AI is now, leveraging what's already there and just making it better. Ed's comment was, I've not seen anything in Fuuz with a tooltip since I've been here, And I'm like, well, because as you're going through and you're building an MES for somebody, there's so many details to cover. And if the customer doesn't give you very clear direction as to what they expect the solution to do, then your solution engineers aren't going to build it.
Right.
If it's not on the blueprint, it doesn't get built, right? It's like if you're building a house, if you don't have a front door on there, because the architect left it off, you don't get a front door. The builder just doesn't think about that. So, and that's where you try to avoid things like change orders and all this other stuff. But that's also where, Claude and some of these LLMs can come in handy, is helping people define that blueprint for their organization. So you can go from the blueprint, which I did initially. I started with, effectively, I want to build this real-time, machine telemetry data application, and here's, in my mind's eye, what I want this thing to be able to do, right? So I wanted reliability metrics and OEE, and eventually get to machine learning. And so Claude just started to help me frame out the entire framework requirements document, essentially.
Was part of that iteration saying, I know when I use AI, it's often to pick up the gaps that I'm not thinking about.
Yeah.
So as you define that, were you saying, what else am I missing? And was it?
So I flip it around and I give it everything I can, and then I say, ask me questions.
Oh, interesting.
Yeah. So I found that it works really well, because if I just ask it for something and take the response and say, is there anything I'm missing? It's like, no, you're so freaking smart. You did such a great job. And it's like, that's not what I want to hear, right? I mean, I want to hear.
Yes, you do.
But no, I kind of flip that around, and now every time I have a little bit of doubt, I'm just like, do you have enough context based on what I'm providing you to give me a full, complete, accurate response? Wow. And so many times, it'll either say, yes, I've got everything I need, because what it's a computer, right? And somebody just reminded me this the other day. All it's trying to do is decide between yes and no. It's a 1 or a 0 at the end of the day, right? So if you don't give it enough information and it can't make a clear distinction, then the response you're going to get is not going to be very good, right? But it'll always give you a response. Its level of confidence, even in the most ridiculous responses, is just incredible. So you have to actually train it to not behave that way.
Yeah.
So there's just been a lot of learning curves that we've done, with that, and now getting the engineering guys on board. And just the other morning I logged in, and we have brand new home pages now for ProveIt.
I know. I'm trying to learn how to demo, and I log in.
There were so many things that, and I don't know why. I don't know what our hesitation was, or maybe there was no hesitation, but we just didn't do it. We just didn't latch on. We didn't realize what we could utilize this for, I think, until probably 4 or 5 weeks ago, when I started uncovering some of these abilities, started showing some of the engineers, and all of a sudden, like, can I get a license for that? And those guys that were early adopters, no different than back in the day implementing software. When you're walking through the plant and you get the curious operators that want to look over your shoulder, they're the ones that are going to be your power users and your super users. And that's exactly what I'm seeing, is that we have a handful of folks that really took it and became, power users. And now there's just this backlog, this laundry list of things that we thought would be nice to have if we could have it done before ProveIt. And I mean, between yesterday and today, it's like almost all done.
Oh my God.
So everything you brought up, things that we've been wanting to do literally for years that are just, to do it without it would have taken a few weeks. And it's just like, it'd be nice. But now it's just like, we're just going to do it. And
so how does that make you think about where we're going to be in a year when you remove
this whole platform is going to be so entirely different in a year, just based on what I'm seeing so far. And we'll have a big roadmap discussion when we get back from ProveIt.
Yeah.
I think we are reevaluating the roadmap constantly, which we always do. But we have big roadmap items that we've been wanting to work on. And I'm actually rethinking some of those bigger investments because I think there's another parallel path or alternative path even where we really double down on the MCP tools and capabilities, making all of that first class. Like we'll be coming out with an MCP tool to create screens, create flows. Because I'm doing all of this with Control C, Control V right now. I'm just copy and pasting between windows, which isn't terrible, but it could that user experience could be a lot better, right? A plant manager or a supervisor is not going to have the tolerance for that. So there's just some things where we have to make decisions between do you polish things up or take them to the next level from like a manual perspective, which is a lot of work and a heavy lift. And anything you do there is always subject to critique and criticism and bugs and further ongoing maintenance and everything else. Or do you kind of just leave things where they are because it works really well and you focus on this like other path
output or
of let's completely change the way we do it, fundamentally. Maybe everything is done through some type of AI, and we'll probably end up building our own, SLM or LLM.
That was going to be my next question. With all of the concerns around, we've got our own security for the MCP, but there's the greater context of even using a Claude or ChatGPT or whatever China releases where people are concerned about that, so that I don't want to call it portability, but that containment of our own engine running entirely within Fuuz.
I see that happening, at least in certain respects. I think in terms of like the development and building apps in Fuuz. So if you want to build a dashboard, you want to do things like that. I think that our customers, being the size and complexity that they're going to have their own AI initiatives. And I don't want to commingle what we think is a good end user facing tool in their environment, because I think that's taking a step backwards.
Yeah, agreed.
There's every app you're in has its own little like AI thing now, right? Like our CRM has its own little AI, Microsoft, you got all these different tools, and so which is great, but we're all still working in silos.
Yep.
I don't want to be one more. Our whole existence is based on removing silos. And I think if we do something like that, then we're just creating one more silo of data and interaction that the rest of the business wouldn't have access to. So I'm thinking more along the lines of like LLM or world models or whatever folks are going to adapt next is kind of core and central to the organization. And everything else, is kind of tangent to it. And those software products that have really focused on embedding their own agents and chatbots and all of that, I think a lot of that's going to go away. It's a lot of smoke and mirrors. It's a lot of marketing. So we'll focus on some of the great benefits of having it built into the platform natively would just be simple things like self-documentation.
Yeah.
Right?
Oh, yeah.
I build an MES and now I want a work instruction. Having an SLM that really understands Fuuz and understands the app that can just churn stuff like that out, or like we've always forever struggled with like field naming conventions on screens, right? Or even in the database when you're building a custom MES. And, just being able to standardize things like that, or descriptions on things, right? Like when you put a description in a data model, it shows up as a tooltip for the user. 9 times out of 10, those things are left empty during an implementation. That's that last mile that oftentimes gets overlooked. Customers just don't have time for it. If you have an embedded SLM, we can just generate those descriptions based on inferring what the data model in the fields and put that in there. So that's what I've actually been doing with Claude. So when it generates screens for me, it creates all of the field level descriptions based on information I gave it. Names everything perfectly. So yeah, I can't tell you how many times I go into a dashboard that somebody built and you start clicking around, and it's like chart 1, chart 2, right? And you're like, what is chart 1? And you got to dig in, and it's all there, but those extra few clicks that you have to take to get the context it's killer. So now when Claude generates it, it's no longer chart 1, it's work center OEE availability graph or something, right? And it's just very explicit, and you know exactly what it is. I think that's hugely valuable to anybody.
So with ProveIt coming, we're going to have people in the audience like Walker, like Dylan, like the partners, that when we use this language, it's going to connect and resonate. When we have the Fortune 50 person that's sitting in that audience, how, again, some of these concepts are so radically powerful that it's difficult to communicate.
Yeah.
That we literally can, Fuuz can completely transform your entire enterprise in a fraction of the time of any other system out there. So how when we think about all the, as builders, we know what this means. You and I have been working on how do we express that to a CEO, to a CFO.
Yeah.
So, those that are sitting in the audience.
I'm just sad. I'm sad that there are so many executives that don't know about these things or understand these things, but yet they're the ones driving a lot of these digital transformation initiatives with very little understanding of what the technology is or where it's going. Right? They follow buzzwords, AI, Industry
IoT,
4.0. They follow buzzwords, really no concept of what these things mean. Not every executive, I don't want to paint that picture, but we literally just met with a multi-billion-dollar company a week or so ago. And sitting there with the executives, and I brought up the fact that, we had MCP capabilities, and I'm getting blank stares. And I was baffled as to why you're not giving me a standing ovation. They didn't know what that meant. And so we had to go through and explain like what that means, and oh, so you have AI, and it's like, no, you're missing the point. So I think a lot of these concepts are unfortunately just going to be over their head. And the best thing to do is not just go buy technology, is to figure out what your problems you're trying to solve first, right? Don't just go chasing buzzwords, but figure out what problem you're trying to solve, what's the value to the organization by solving that problem, and then get somebody's help. Our partners like Abolera, PwC, they'll come in, do a DTMA assessment and really show you where you are and help you understand that architecture. And how many times do we get these clients that come in with their future architecture and we look, and there's 37 products in this, right? And we already know, A, it's unachievable, B, it's going to cost millions of dollars, and C, they're telling us what problems they think they're solving with this architecture. We already know it's not going to solve the problems. We're looking at things like data lakes and Boomi, and we got this app and that app and this other thing, and this is going to talk to that, and it's crazy. But when you get stuck in some of these like mental silos for so long, right? And just like, I think you said before, like we all kind of drank the Kool-Aid that ERP is like the center of your universe back in the day. Those things, if you still think that, then God help you. I mean, that's all I can really say. That is just not the way it is anymore. This isn't conjecture.
Yeah.
This isn't our opinion. This
Decades
isn't
of proof now. Yeah.
Yeah, this is the way it is. I mean, you have to accept the fact that if you don't have the Fuuz industrial intelligence layer, you will not be able to leverage all of the benefits of some of these things that are forthcoming. The LLMs, the tools that are out there. There's other ways to solve very individualized problems with point solutions and individualized tools. Totally fine, but if you're really looking for like an organizational shift towards this more modern way of doing things and getting the efficiency gains, I don't think there's another solution.
Yeah, and it's been fun. Recently we've been working with On-Time Edge and Concept Reply, and to your point, those are trusted shoulder to shoulder with Fortune 50, Fortune 500 executives that have that trust, have that understanding of the pains that those organizations are facing. So it's been fun for me to sit in some of these meetings with them and watch how quickly they're absorbing the advantages and just jumping, from here to here, and they already get all this, right?
Yeah.
And everybody else is kind of stuck in this, and it's been fun to watch them make that leap of, oh my gosh, okay, let's stand on the shoulders of giants and get straight to the fun stuff.
Right.
Let's do literal transformation of companies, not an initiative, not a buzzword, not a slide, but watching a company completely transform in a period of a year.
Yeah.
Not just putting in a financial system in a year, transforming visibility, financials, inventory, quality, production, efficiency, just across the board.
Not another OEE dashboard. We have enough OEE dashboards out there in the world.
Yeah.
We don't need another OEE dashboard. We don't need another app that counts in feed and out feed and gives us a number. Right? I mean, that's not moving the needle for manufacturers.
I thought it was really interesting that when you released your product description, it wasn't titled OEE.
Yeah.
It was telemetry. It was talking about the data.
Yeah.
So I even posted on LinkedIn that for me that was another brain shift. We're trained to have these concrete stakes in the ground of OEE. Everybody knows that buzzword, but again, it's an artifact. It's a symptom that people have created. There's a much bigger organic fabric of what's happening. That's an output of everything that's there, but that's just the start of the story. So watching you prove that it's part of the story by creating an app.
Yeah, it had to be done. It had to be done. I'm really, really sick of OEE conversations. And we get them a lot, and that's fine if you're a manufacturer and that's what is the next thing. That's the next level of your innovation is to get OEE. But coming from manufacturing, coming from operations, that was really all we had back in the 90s and earlier 2000s, right? Nobody was collecting data off of the machines. That was like only the big companies, could afford that kind of thing. So all we had at that point was, hey, operators at the end of the day are going to turn in their production sheets. They're going to, give us good scrap downtime. And then the next day we get an OEE number for how we did yesterday. Good, bad, whatever.
Yep.
Somebody told me once, figures don't lie, but liars can figure. If that makes sense.
Yeah.
I think they were actually talking about our accountant at the time.
Yeah.
But that just resonates. I've been in so many different manufacturers that are, oh, we can't calculate OEE that way. Oh, no. That shouldn't count towards OEE. It's like, all right, guys, listen. this number, by the time you get it, is so made up. It's so false. It's not, you're not driving any real value.
Right.
Now, raw data coming off of a machine, the machine doesn't lie. It's either running or not running, right? It's either at temp or it's not at temp, or it's on cycle or not on cycle. So I think what we need to do, and one of the things that we'll probably be working on in the next month or two, is what's a different metric? What's a better way for a manufacturer to truly understand their operational efficiency? Take OEE, maybe that's still a metric they want to have, but there's got to be a different metric.
The Fuuz metric.
The Fuuz metric. How do we use the raw data? How do we combine that with the OEE information that we're getting from MES? But what about all the logistics? What about all of the data we're collecting from the warehouse management system, right? How long it takes for requests to get fulfilled and all of that winds up into production slowdowns, blockages, right, at the line, which kind of sort of gets captured in the OEE number, but not really, because everything else that goes into it is just hyperbole. What was my scrap for the day? Well, I don't know. I didn't make any scrap, So yeah, I think we'll try to come up with some other metrics that maybe nobody's really thought of before. And I think we're in a unique position to do that because of the diverse nature of the platform. Everybody else is either an MES and you're going to get OEE, or you're a maintenance application, you're going to get reliability. You're a warehouse application, so you're going to get like fulfillments and churns, and
again, they're all artifacts. They're all, they're all a way of somebody setting up some sort of measurements with the constraints that they had, and use that to drive behavior in a particular individual department silo, instead of this organic, organizational, how does this impact? All of these things are related.
They're all inputs and outputs to each other in a circular way, but currently they're all separate, siloed applications with their own metrics, no correlation between them.
Kind of like our health system, right? Where you get, Bob can only look at your bones and Sue can only look at your blood work.
They're
all related.
Yeah.
And until we see that organic picture, our health is probably going to suck until we get to the Star Trek level.
Manufacturers just need like a general practice that they can go to really understand how their operations are running. One source of truth. Right. And so I think, I don't know, just kind of a fun project I think I'm going to undertake after ProveIt.
If you solve it by...
After ProveIt. I've already got too much on my plate. I had to box up the freaking booth. It's 500 pounds worth of crap that's got to be shipped to Dallas. That's got to be set up for the booth. So we got that done. We've got our VIP suite experience that I think you and Steve are working on. Get invites, and we've got food, and we've got all this stuff. I mean, there's just so many moving parts.
Yeah, and it's, conferences are always exciting. We wanted to do a little bit beforehand of the conference, and we'll probably do another one after of the results and some of the behind the scenes of setting up. And appreciate your time, and never a dull moment, man. It feels like it's got to you feel like we are moving exponentially faster than it has in history for Fuuz.
Yeah, we're definitely moving. We're moving very fast, and we have a desire to do that right now because we want to really show off what we can do at ProveIt, since it's the first time that a lot of people will ever see the platform. So we want that to be really, really special and really powerful for everybody that gets to see it for the first time. Just internally, I think we're all just learning so much going through this exercise, and really identifying with where the audience, where we think a lot of the audience members are going to be at. They were there last year. They probably spent some money. They probably invested in one tool or another, right? So over the past 12 months, they've gotten all their machines connected, right? They've got all the data now going into a data lake. Now they're coming back because they're like, okay, well, what's next?
Right. Or why didn't this work?
Yeah, or why, yeah, why did we invest hundreds of thousands and it's not working?
Yeah.
There's going to be multiple sides of that spectrum, and I think it'll be really helpful for those that have been down that path. Come by the booth, and hopefully they'll learn something. They'll learn where no matter what infrastructure you've already got, you can always fix it. You can always add this layer in or on top of what you have. It's not a rip and replace, but just to get more out of your investments. I think having PwC there to, evangelize how all of this gets up to the C-level at an enterprise level. I've not seen anybody in the OT space really talk about costs, right? Incurred labor, expenses, overhead, right? I'm sure there's some concern when you're building these apps because you have to capture this data, but now how do we contextualize it and get it up to accounting? So we'll be addressing some of that, and then having Fanuc in the in the booth, which I'm glad we finally got that worked out. I guess the robot's getting put on a truck today. So the guy better drive fast. But yeah, it should be fun. It'll be a good time and a heck of an experience. And I hope that everybody that attends enjoys what we have to show.
Yeah. Likewise, I'm excited for the conversations and so many thought leaders in one place. We're probably going to come back with a million more ideas, unfortunately.
And if I'm not standing in the booth, that means I'm hiding somewhere building another app, or I'm figuring out this calculation.
I'll do my best to insulate you.
Yeah. Awesome.
Awesome. Thanks so much for your time.
Yeah. All right. Thanks.